Chag Sameach, everyone. In 2019, I led a community Seder at my synagogue. Rivka, who was then barely 4 years old, was of course mostly interested in the grape juice. And after she drank enthusiastically from her first cup, she reached right for the Kos Eliyahu sitting right in front of her. I stopped her, explaining that we were saving that cup for Elijah. You can't drink from it, I said. It's for Elijah, but you can open the door for him later. She seemed satisfied with that answer, and we continued with the Seder. After dinner, she got antsy and got up to go play. Since this was the first Seder after the Tree of Life shooting, we had a security guard at the entrance, which was positioned right between the room where the Seder was and the playroom. When Rivka saw him, she got all excited and ran toward him, shouting, "Elijah, come, we have grape juice for you." So after I stopped myself from bursting out in laughter and explained to the confused guard that no, we did not need him to come for some grape juice related emergency, I turned to Rivka and told her how kind that was, but that the security guard was not, in fact, Eliyahu Hanavi. Elijah isn't someone we see, but we save a cup of grape juice for him anyway, and open the door for him, and hope that he joins us. Why? Because he reminds us that the world can be even better than it already is. And just thinking of him reminds us to make the world a better place, whether we see him or not. I think about this story often, in part because it's such a great story, but in part because it was then that I realized how much Passover is marked by absence rather than presence. Think about it. Preparations for the holiday begin with ridding our homes of chametz. There are more commandments in the Torah about removing chametz from our homes and our lives during this 8-day holiday than there are about eating matzah in its stead. It is the absence of chametz that is central to this holiday. In the Seder every year, as we near the end of the telling of the story, we recite the words of Rabban Gamliel that a Seder is not complete unless we talk about three things: Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Pesach al shum ma, we declare. This Pesach sacrifice, why do we eat it? And as we declare it, we point to a dry bone. One of the three essential components to telling the story is absent from our tables, a point underscored when we eat the Hillel sandwich. What was once the first real substantive food of the Seder, a lamb wrap on flatbread with some spicy greens or spread, is now effectively a condiment sandwich, the equivalent of having a sandwich of mustard and mayonnaise. The fact that we still eat this sandwich as part of our Seder underscores the absence of what was once the central food of the Seder. And there is more. The absence of the afikomen at that moment when we most need it, the absence of Moses, Aaron, Miriam from the telling of the story in the traditional text of the Haggadah, the absence, of course, of Eliyahu Hanavi every year, despite the fact that we have saved him a cup of juice or wine. But here is what I find so powerful. The absence of all these things, chametz, the Pesach lamb, the characters, the afikomen, the absence of all of these somehow increases their presence. How many of us have thought more about bread and pasta this week when chametz is meant to be absent from our lives more than other weeks? How often has the strangeness of the Hillel sandwich or the appearance of an inedible bare bone on the Seder plate inspired conversations that other foods have not? When we think back to Seders past, How many of us remember the search for the afikomen or the anticipation of opening the door for a person who was not there more than other moments of the Seder? Perhaps one of the lessons of Passover then is that absence evokes presence. Absence is not the same as non-existence, because when we note that something is absent, we remind ourselves that it was once there. And in doing so, it becomes present in our consciousnesses, perhaps in even greater ways than physical presence would have enabled. Of course, this is not only true of items absent from our Seder tables. This time of year is punctuated by so much that should be here but is not. A beloved family member's secret recipe now absent from the menu because they are no longer here to make it. A voice once booming out in song that is now silent. Loved ones who should be sitting at our Seder tables who are no longer with us. Friends and family who we can no longer reach out to. Members of our people whose lives were cut short by acts of terror. The 6 million who were so brutally murdered, whose memories we recall in less than a week on Yom HaShoah. I've been thinking especially about this strange relationship between absence and presence as I prepare to embark on March of the Living with the Connecticut Voices of Hope delegation and 10,000 others from around the world. We are visiting Poland, a land that resonates with absence, streets that should be filled by millions of Jews but are not, yeshivas where words of Torah no longer spring forth, synagogues whose walls should echo with prayer, if those walls even stand, graves whose yards are absent even of a cemetery. We will be present in Poland next week only because of the absence of 3 million Polish Jews who were murdered in the Holocaust. And yet, though they themselves are gone, their memories are very much with us, present and shaping our identity and the way we face the world. Paradoxically, it is focusing on their absence that evokes their presence, just as it is with each of our personal losses. As we prepare for Yizkor, let us take a moment to think of all those who are absent from our lives. And in doing so, let the memories of those who have passed fill our minds and our hearts. Let us think of all the ways in which they continue to remain present in our lives. In that way, may the memories of all those who are absent yet still present with us forever be a blessing.